Well, hi again, folks. I'm Greg Flynn, the Public Information Director here for the City of Pearl, and we are going to go under the dome over at our state capitol. We've got a very special guest today. Senator Dean Kirby has brought in the head honcho over at the Senate. It is Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. Welcome in, Governor.
Thank you. It's good to be back. We've been over several different times. It's always fun to come over to Pearl. We were over for their event they had here maybe about 2 weeks ago. Gene Newman brought me over, and you had a packed house.
Yeah, that was for the Chamber of Commerce
Chamber of
Awards.
Commerce Awards, and I just, when you see things like that, Greg, people show up for Chamber of Commerce, that kind of thing. It's a growing community that cares about itself. You know, if you don't care about yourself, who else is going to care about you? And so you feel that in that Pearl, in your Pearl city, and like all the young business people that came in there and the bankers and all, they had all these people in there supporting your community, and that's what makes it different. Well,
Senator Kirby's really kept us up to speed on the session, and boy, you guys have just been setting them up and knocking them down, and we're getting closer and closer to the end of the session. But now is when the hay really gets made, is things have to go to conference. You have to spend all the money now. You got to say yes, no, and that's kind of the tough decisions you have left.
We do. This week was Appropriations Week, and then we'll finish up hopefully next week. We're trying to finish early, like we usually do in the Senate and the House, so that we save taxpayers money by sending everybody home. So we're bound and determined to finish in the next 2 weeks. This week will be a very heavy week on appropriations, and like you say, the conference committee reports. Basically, when the House and the Senate have disagreed and both pass bills, then we have to name 3 conferees, which Senator Kirby will be a member of several of those. Those 3 conferees get with the House and the Senate. They meet in public most of the time, unless it's an agreed upon thing. There's just a couple of changes one way or another. And then they come back to the House and the Senate with what their work is. And if they can't agree, and to agree, 2 out of the 3 of each side have to sign. So you could have 1 disagree, but you can't have 2. And so you have to make sure that at least 2 members of the House and 2 members of the Senate will agree in order to bring it back to the floor where we'd vote on it again. And all of those, I don't know, probably 50 or 60 bills are like that.
Senator Kirby, I know one of the things that you've been very, very proud of is watching the work progress down there at the Pearl-Richland Intermodal on South Pearson Road, where the bridge is getting very, very close, is it not?
It is. It is. You know, it's going to be such a wonderful thing with the people being able to get off Lakeland Drive and go to Florence without going through the stack and all that traffic. And of course, traffic's not as bad on 49 as it used to be, but it's still a lot of traffic, and it's going to be a great thing for all of Rankin County.
Governor, you were integral in helping get that funding for that project for Pearl and for Rankin County.
Yeah, I was integral because Senator Kirby told me to be integral. That's how integral I was. He came over and gave me, this is what we need to do, and I said, it sounds like a great idea. I love that community, so that's how that came about.
Well, I mean, we have a great advocate in Senator Kirby, but you know, your focus since being in the Senate has really been on infrastructure throughout the state.
It has, Greg, and you know, it's good to have a chance to talk a little bit about how things work. I was very frustrated with Highway 49, and we were $100 million over budget. And I called all the 3 commissioners in and had what they call in politics an upfront and frank discussion. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yes, sir.
So in any event, that led me to pushing through what happens between the time that Senator Kirby and the House bring this money out and it goes in the ground. I mean, what's that gap period? And I felt it was too long. So I actually went over to MDOT and I roamed the halls over there 2 or 3 different times and sit down with people at their desk. What are you doing? How long does it take to do that? What's a holdup? That kind of thing. And I was real pleased with Brad White being the new appointee over there and running the place. He's been very accommodating and meets with us regularly. I'll have a meeting with him today on what we're going to do going forward. But as a result of a lot of that and Brad's hard work over there and the commissioners too, we were putting out 2 years ago, I think, $400 million worth of contracts. And we were appropriating like $1.4 billion. So where's the rest of it? So this last year, we appropriated $963 million in contracts. That means that you're going to see barrels and backhoes out somewhere. And my task to them when I went over and spoke to them this last week was, y'all, we want you to do $1 billion worth of contracts. Now, some of that is the federal government because we get matching. We have to get it from the federal government, that kind of thing. But I don't want any excuses. We need to have all this money we're appropriating needs to go out. This year, we will appropriate about $2.3 billion, the most ever, including $100 million for roads and bridges, including the work that Senator Kirby's talking about here, but all over the state. We're expanding the 4 lanes. We're fixing our roads, fixing our bridges all over Mississippi. And that's long-term stuff. And so I'm real pleased with it. But you're right. I literally go walk the halls over there in MDOT. And it's so funny. You come in and I sit down and they have this big eye. You're like, what's the lieutenant governor doing sitting at my desk? And I don't think that's unusual, but apparently it is.
No, and it shouldn't be. I mean, you guys want to know updates.
I do.
I know Senator Kirby we've really talked a lot about the West Rankin Parkway and where that one stands. And it's latest we heard was that MDOT is going to have to rebid it because of a change order of the dirt and all of those things. And that's one of the things that folks here in Pearl and in Rankin County for Flowood as well, they're just real frustrated with how long that project has been sitting. I believe since 2016 they started. They broke ground on that.
Well, broke ground, but actually the bill was passed like in '94, maybe something like that.
But now it's a lot of red tape that we're having to work through because now the dirt has to be changed out. MDOT engineers say that it's not compaction. Is that right, Senator?
That's correct.
So that the compaction isn't right, and so it'll eventually get done. But we're just hoping it's sooner rather than later.
That was one of the ones that's particularly frustrating to me because we paid for that dirt to be in there. I mean, you and I and the people watching this paid for that dirt to be in there. It's been sitting there for years. So now we have to go all the way back and dig out what was put in there in the first place. And so that's another conversation I had with MDOT about why that is. Why do we have to pay somebody to do that? Why don't they fix it? Why am I having to fix it? Why is our government, our taxpayers having to fix it? So no, I'm real frustrated with that. That ought to go all the way through. And then where you go off Lakeland Drive, coming all the way over to the interstate, that's 4 lane, and then 2 lanes off right by the airport there. You have to go around to kind of circle. They're finishing that to link it to the interstate. And then the next big push obviously needs to go from Grants Ferry Road out to the highway, what's the number that's all
471?
471 or 3 or whatever it is out there. That, past Pine Lake Church, the Catholic Church, Northwest Rankin, I worried to death about somebody getting run over out there. They just added that school there. And so now, this is outside of Pearl, but it's all...
No, it's Rankin County.
It's a community. So there's not enough turn lanes there when you're early in the morning and somebody's going to get run over. You got to cross there. I just think that's a dangerous spot, and they've got a brand new school there. So we really need to take the 4 lane out to 471 or 473, whichever it is out there. And I think those are critical. Those 3 circular patterns as you build really ring roads around the community to allow people that are keeping expanding. Y'all are the fastest growing county here. Keep expanding out. You need these arteries that allow people to move around.
Well, and you all have done a great job of putting it as a priority to be able to move people north and south in Rankin County. We had plenty of ways to move people east and west.
Right.
But when we had a traffic accident that had to shut down the interstate for several hours, everybody had to get on Highway 80. And you were stuck there too. So, but you really have put a good focus on being able to get people north and south off of I-20.
Yeah, and we met with a group that was looking at running a toll bridge from end of High Street in Jackson to the airport.
Yeah, I remember that was the Airport Parkway project.
The Airport Parkway, and that we've actually acquired the land on that. So it's just a matter of, because we got with treetops, we got stuck with bad dirt, so we hadn't finished that in order to finish the other. So it's all kind of hanging together. I don't know what the traffic would be there. They have a minimum amount of traffic in order to do a toll bridge or whatever. But it's, we need a third artery. The Highway 80, Interstate 20, and Lakeland Drive. Anybody that, I remember one time I got off on Lakeland Drive going out to do some things out in the county, And by the time you get to the old baseball park, you just stop. And then you stop all the way till you get to, I don't know, 471 or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's pretty, that comes from the fact that you got great growth out here, great families and good schools and all that other. So it's just a place people want to live.
One of the other topics you said you wanted to talk about was for small businesses, they're going to be able to write off equipment.
Yeah, we came, we first started back with the largest tax cut ever in Mississippi history. It's $500 million a year, over $525 million a year. And we're phasing that in this year, next year, and fully in 26. And as part of that, we also wanted to look at what's happening with businesses. You know, we love our big businesses. Nissan's just announced the largest aluminum mill in the country is being built in Columbus. We have a lot of things going on like that. But our real heartbeat, most of our people work in something less than 100 employees. And so the small business really is the way we continue to prosper here in Mississippi, and we can accommodate that growth because our school systems are producing good educated men and women. But it's hard to accommodate like 2,000 or 3,000 employees, but it's good to accommodate maybe another 50 or 25 expansion. So what we did was we came up and we're going to write off, you can deduct fully any of the equipment that you purchase from Mississippi taxes. So that gives us an input into having people invest in new manufacturing equipment, which means they'll stay here and grow here. And so I thought that was really important. My background was in the tax and business area, so I thought a fully deductible capital expense is a really good thing. So, I mean, that'll work for a muffler shop or a printing press. It doesn't really matter, whatever. Being able to write that off that first year is very helpful to those people. They'll pay less taxes.
You know, one of the things that Pearl certainly, but in all of Rankin County, we take pride in the education that we have and the great schools that we have.
Right.
And under this new formula, the Mississippi Adequate Education Program, the funding formula you guys have changed it, and we're actually going to see a windfall of sorts here in Pearl and in Rankin County.
Yeah, the Senate had worked on this for years, and there's something called the MAEP formula, and it's real complicated, and it's been going on since, I guess, the late 90s, and it's only been funded, I think, like twice, 2 different times in the last 20-something years. So it works off how many kids that you have, what your normal cost is, average student cost, and then there's some adjustments made for that. And then how much does the cities put in and the counties put in for their schools. And then we want to make sure that every school has an adequate education. That's what that's about. And so there's some minimums dollars that you need in order to be able to make sure that that child is getting a good education just about everywhere in Mississippi. So we changed the formula, and it brought it down some because of some depreciation things and other things were in there. But basically, to bring it down to what Rankin County gets $15.8 million more a year for their school system. Now, you can call the superintendent, and I think they'll tell you pretty quickly that that's going to be a tremendous help. Now, that will flow down into buildings, equipment, computers and things, but also teachers and teachers' assistants and others. They'll be able to use that where they need best to make sure that they have an adequate education, which you've got here. But in a lot of places in Mississippi, they don't, or they struggle. And we have 5 districts that are being taken over, like Clarksdale has been an F school like 5 or 6 out of the last 7 years. So there are places in Mississippi that this will be the difference between getting an education. In y'all's case, the $15.8 million at Rankin County means you'll have an even better education. And in Pearl, it's $5.3 million just for this town.
Yeah, because we have the separate school district.
Right.
So Pearl will realize $5 million, and the county as a whole,
Right.
15. That's pretty good numbers, Senator, because you know, the whole county's going to get 15, and we're getting a third of that.
Well, Ray Rogers Stadium is already really nice, so you won't spend it there. You're going to spend it on computers and equipment and teachers and stuff. It'll be really good.
I like that.
Yeah, we're pleased with that. I think the new formula, the new MAP, is way much better than the old.
Yeah.
The old kind of rewards people that shouldn't be rewarded, I think, in some cases. And that's why we're getting more than some of the other schools.
Well, that will certainly help us keep that A rating that we have here
Oh, yeah.
in Pirate Country.
Yeah, not only would you have an A rating now, But even the things that the additional things they want to do, particularly in the computer and distance learning areas and stuff, is really important. And we are pushing for semester schools around the state, and we're getting some real success. Corinth and Gulfport and Lamar County, Oxford, many of our schools are going to what we have been encouraging them to do over the last couple of years, and that is 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off semester system. So you get a fall break, then Christmas, of course, Thanksgiving, then you get a spring break, then you come back, and in the summer they're gone about 4 to 5 weeks. So in Gulfport, it would have been like, when I went down to their place, it was from like June, maybe the 6th or 7th to July the 7th was their summer break. The rest of the time they're in these 9 week, 3 weeks off. And what's happened with that, Greg, is that the kids that are, the periods in between are called intersessions at 2 or 3 weeks. The kids that are behind a little, they get caught up in that intersession. So we're helping our kids that may struggle a little bit more with algebra or something, bring those up to speed. And then during the summer in Gulfport, they had over maybe 1,200 kids out of 5,000 kids in school in the summer. And so working moms, for example, or a single parent, whatever, they had a place for their kids to go, get fed in a safe learning environment. A safe learning environment. And so these kids are now learning, even during the summer, it was, you know, it wasn't like you're in a structured thing, but they had individual things they're picking up that are going to help them in the long run about what they're doing. And so I was very pleased with this. It's my vision that we'll all end up that way. I mean, all of our schools will end up on this semester system. And the reason is we have a learning environment. People still get their time off and whatnot. Right now we're teaching 180 days, and we're really not teaching that many because we got all these other days that go. But keeping our kids to where they can be competitive, not just with Arkansas, but with the world. I mean, we compete with China, and we're fixing to compete with them more. So I want my kids to be able to be there in that learning environment for a longer period of time. And then if you want to stay for the intersession, you can. A lot of moms and families, they have a fall break and they go up to the mountains at Gatlinburg or something, and so they use that time for family time. That's fine. The teachers just love this because they really need a break. I mean, you're with these kids all this time. In Lamar County, when we did polls on that this last year, the teachers were 82% in favor of this semester system, and the parents were 85% in favor. Now, Dean and I try to get to 51%, so if somebody says that 85% of the people want to do something, that's a landslide. Yeah. So you'll see, I think, education in our country, even in our state, even in the really good schools, as they start to address this fact that we've got to have our kids, some of our kids, in a learning environment longer to catch up and be competitive. I think you'll see even the best of school. Oh, Lamar County's got an A school.
Well, when you look at it now, under the old system, the traditional system, kids, when they finish the year, okay, it's 9 weeks before they pick up a book again for most of them.
At least
9 to 10
because
weeks.
There's a testing. They really don't teach much in May anyway.
True.
So it's May, June, July. You know, they come back at the middle of August or something like that.
First week of August, they typically will come back. So that's a long time in between, you know, for a lot of kids,
right,
between picking up a book.
That's right. And our kids, you talk to teachers and they say the summer slump is what they call it. They say it takes us to October to get them back into a routine. Well, this routine is going on all the time, and then our kids that may want to accelerate during the summer can do accelerated, and our kids that need a little help can get some help, and the ones that just need to have a safe place to be in a learning environment, they can still go there. So it runs about, the bill for Lamar County to switch was $203,000 a year. That was it for 18. They have 18 schools, so they've got Purvis. They've got a bunch, and it's growing out. And like, to give you some perspective of what the cost is, it would be much less here because you're not spread out as much. Rankin County would probably be a pretty good bit, but Pearl wouldn't. So I think you'll see your superintendents all looking at this. We probably are around 7 to 10 of our school districts right now. I expect that amount to probably double the next year and then double again. I think the opportunities for our kids, and then the social issues. You know, back when we were growing up, you sneak a beer or something, but now they've got fentanyl on the street. So, I mean, they literally can get killed from something that they can pick up. So it's just a different environment. It's a different world. And to have our kids in an education, learning, and safe environment, I think is critical to us having a long-term future.
All right, 2 more topics I want to hit with you. First, healthcare. One of the things that Senator Kirby has talked with us about during this whole session is trying to solve the nursing shortage, because it is an absolute nightmare. God forbid you have to go to a hospital these days and you wind up sitting down in the ER for 5, 10, 15 hours.
That happened to my friends. They all have insurance, and they all had Blue Cross or whatever, and they also they could pay, but one of them sat 6 hours in one of the hospitals here, and another one, it's very, very common now.
But they're trying to, you guys are doing whatever you can.
You want to talk a little bit about
to
well,
solve
we've
that
got
problem.
the Hines Community College Nursing School to begin with that we're building, and that's going to make a big difference. Their nursing school at one time, I think I've said this before, averaged around 750 students, and I think now they're down to like 230 because honestly, the people didn't feel safe going to nursing school at that location. And so the best location would have been their Rankin campus. And we've about halfway funded that last year. Hopefully we'll do it again this year, and we'll have a nice nursing school. It'll turn out like 1,000 a year.
Well, and hopefully we can find a way to keep them here. You know, you talk a lot of times about the brain drain, but here when people get their nursing degree, well, they're off to go do travel nursing where they can make almost $100 an hour.
Yeah, we have legislation this year that'll pay $6,000 a year off your student debt if you stay in Mississippi. Total of $18,000. So basically, we'll pay for nursing school.
That's huge.
As long as you stay here for, I think it's 3 to 5 years. I forget exactly what the number of years, but if you'll stay in Mississippi and work, we'll pay off your debt for your nursing school. And you're right, we feel like we're about 3,000 nurses short here. And the compensation in COVID just got completely out of control. I mean, people were making $200-300 an hour off in Dallas or someplace that paid just about anything. And now I think we're getting back to a more level. But we want our nurses to be educated here. Almost every community college has one, including Hines, which will have a nice one. And MUW, University of Mississippi, all of them have nursing programs. So we're giving the nurses who go through those programs a real large economic benefit if they stay here.
Senator, you wanted to add something to that?
Well, I just appreciate the Lieutenant Governor working with us on doing this. It's, you know, when I was in the hospital, had the flu, turned into pneumonia, all that good stuff. People were waiting in the waiting rooms at Baptist Hospital, actually, 2 to 3 days in ER before they could ever be taken to a room. And that's just wrong. And I asked them, what is the problem? And they said, staffing. I said, like, what kind of staffing? And nurses. And they said, as an example, the floor I was on, they said it was only half full. That they just couldn't use the rest of it because they didn't have the nurses, you know, and so people were waiting forever. Had a friend that waited 14 or 15 hours, was having a heart attack at a hospital, another hospital.
Insanity.
Yeah, he's lucky to be alive. So it's crazy. But we're working on it, and to be honest with you, because of the Lieutenant Governor, we didn't just start working on this. I mean, last year was when the real big push started. Yeah. And we realized last year, because of COVID and other things, that we were headed the wrong direction, so he's helped turn it around.
I'd like to shift. The final topic here is law and order. Yeah, I know you're big into law and order. So first I want to talk about the minimum sentencing that you're proposing.
Yeah, we have looked at, this is all wrapped up in a lot of the crime that we're seeing operating here in the capital area. We have made mandatory sentences of 5 years if they steal your truck. Now, and 10 years if it's an armed hijacking. So then we have mandatory sentences 5 years if you're fleeing. Now, we've had a number of fleeings. Y'all have chased people over to Jackson And we've had a person die in some of those. So if you're going to flee a police officer that has his lights on and whatnot, or her lights on, then we want you to have mandatory sentencing. And it's not just an anti-crime provision, which it is. I think I forget how many thousands of trucks have been stolen in the last few years in Jackson, including my own. Truck was stolen out of my driveway. So everybody's facing this. But what we're trying to do is stop these criminals when they're at this level, Greg, because they start with petty crimes and they steal your lawnmower, or they do this and they do little drugs on the street or something like that. Then they steal a car. Then, like mine was used in a robbery at a pawn shop. Then somebody dies. Maybe you, maybe somebody else. But that whole operation where you start with the petty crimes, you go higher, you steal a truck, you do a robbery, and then you have a murder. So, and I think to pull them out of society for 5 years and let them think about where they're going, I'm very hopeful that will be a deterrent to these people, not to steal your truck, but also not to get to a point where the next action is the armed robbery and somebody gets shot. And that's what's happening a lot. So we're doing that. We've got mandatory sentencing for that, fleeing, for armed hijacking. All of those are mandatory sentencing. And as you know, there have been a whole bunch of discussions about the fact that we believe that we should have a more expedited judiciary in Hinds County. So about 2 years ago, I started meeting with the Supreme Court justice, and I will admit I've been pushing this, and we finally got funding like a year ago to put additional judges in Hinds County. And we had 4 appointed. One had to retire. We had 3 judges trying their cases. They have 3,500 criminal cases in the backlog. Some of them 2 and 3 years old, which is not really speedy justice, not justice at all when you start getting that late. But in any event, we went through that process, and we have been doing that for 2 years. Before any of these other legislation and stuff has come out, we've been paying judges to do that, and we've increased the Capitol Police to 107 officers. We're going to 150 officers. So we just felt like we had to have crime, and there'd be a penalty for crime. It'd be a stiff penalty for crime. You have a speedy trial. If you're not convicted, that's fine. If you are convicted, you go to prison and sit for a while until you can become a better member of society. Very important to me personally, and I think to the Senate. We passed a lot of this legislation that's coming out this next week again. So you'll see an additional law enforcement and whatnot. So what does that mean to Pearl and Rankin County? Well, we still have a lot of people work downtown. A lot of people that live in Pearl or live in Rankin County work downtown or work in the metropolitan area down there. They need to be safe when they go to work. When they come off work, they need to make sure they get in the car and they're the only one in the car. So it's very important, I think, to us to realize that this is a regional problem and not just one we can go home at night and probably be safe over here because of Brian Bailey. But when you go to work over there or you go to shop over there or anything else, you have these issues. You know, you're at risk for whatever. So it really is something we need to address, I think, as a region, and not just myopic about, oh, this is a Jackson problem. Well, it is a Jackson problem unless you never go across the Pearl River. If you ever go over there, then it's your problem too. So I'm hopeful that these will lose some of this vitriol that's been out on the national press and all that other stuff that they say. We've been doing this for a while. I think it's having a positive impact. I intend to continue it for another year or two, and hopefully we'll get them back. Like, they don't even have a jail. There's no jail in Jackson. So they write tickets and stuff to people, and I guess ask them to come by when they get around to it. So it's just a whole plethora of
If there's no consequence, then there's no impetus to get these people to stop committing crimes, especially misdemeanors, because Senator Kirby's talked about this a lot. They just don't even enforce misdemeanors over there. So
no, we've had a lot more results from the Capitol Police actually doing police work. And in the community itself, there are activists that say, oh my goodness, you know, you shouldn't have these extra police officers. But out in the community, the people I've talked to that are living around the city, everywhere in the city, are pleased that they have some police protection that they may not have had, mainly from funding. They downsized the police department so much over there, It was just really hard. But,
Well, and it appears you have the votes, and something will come out of this session
That's correct.
to expand the jurisdiction of the Capitol Police.
Yes, and my view on that is that it should be expanded to the entire city. Now, there is a proposal from the House just to expand it to like North Jackson or something. Well, there's no walls. So if you got one safe area in North Jackson, then that means that you got some really unsafe area elsewhere, and those people will come over and run back and forth like we're seeing done right now. We're seeing your own police officers chase these people. So that's not really a solution, you know? That's not really a solution. So I don't think, in my mind, it needs to be. I don't know, is that your?
Siri's talking to somebody,
Yeah,
Senator.
That's your Senator.
I got my, I thought I had it all.
So no,
I do have
it's,
it all.
I think it's important that we have a full wide city solution and not just try to build some walls somewhere, one way or another. I think that'll leave our capital city in a much worse position, and I think it'll hurt our businesses, our financial businesses.
Well, one of the things, because we know, as you mentioned, the City of Jackson, the Hinds County justice system is broken when it
Yes.
comes to trials and getting people adjudicated. It doesn't. It initially came out that you would set up a separate court system for any tickets that the Capitol Police write. You know, they would be arrested and then sent into the circuit court system. But it doesn't look like that's got the legs to get through this time.
You know, I don't know that I need a separate court system. I've been paying these 3 other judges. I say, that's a collective. The state of Mississippi's been paying them. These other 3 judges to do this backlog, they're over there working. I don't know that I need to set up a whole court system, because then it becomes just another agency or something, and it just, you never get out from under it. Ronald Reagan was right about that. You know, the one thing that lives forever is a new government agency. So I would prefer just to pay these judges until such times it right sizes over there, and then get out of this. I mean, it needs to be their expense. Why is the rest of the state?
Well, the only question is, like, when Capitol Police will write a citation
Yeah.
within their district, you're then banking on the City of Jackson, because they have to go to municipal court for
Right.
that, to follow
Actually enforce it. Yeah,
and that's the tough part, I think.
it is.
Isn't it?
It's difficult, but I'm hopeful. I don't want this to be a permanent structure. I'd like for us, hopefully, to get a handle on this, and then get where their judges are taking care of the work that they've got before them once you get it caught up. And there's some other things we want to do. We need to do quicker work on the crime lab is way behind. And it was Senator Tyndall, but Commissioner Tyndall and I have met on that a number of different times, and I think you'll see some stuff out of that. That helps the whole state. Some other things to progress those faster. I think there's 15,000 cases pending out there.
Well,
So
we
we've got
can't
some
wait.
other stuff.
If you've been out there out of Allen Stewart,
Yeah.
drive out there. The crime lab is out there, beautiful, been sitting there. Now we're getting the Highway Patrol headquarters.
Everything's moving to Hinds County. The whole Highway Patrol is
Rankin,
moving
yeah.
out here.
Well, it will be
Rankin County.
Rankin County, City of Pearl. I mean, it's just outside. It's not technically our city,
Just,
but we
yeah.
will we claim them.
We do.
As all the other state agencies out there. So you are really growing a great public safety complex, in addition to the fire academy that's out there, emergency management agency, environmental quality.
And soon the Veterans Home, we're going to fund that this year, so you'll have more out on that 35 acres that's there. But it's, it's just a very accommodating, I hate to say this, but you got water. So there's some very...
You can flush the toilet and be confident it's going to flush. I mean, that's all there is to
So
it.
there are some advantages here, but Rankin County's been so welcoming on all of this work that we've done here. We have been pushing on the Highway Patrol building. It is behind where I need it to be. We're hoping it'll be about a year before finishing. And it'll be in there with the crime lab, as you know, and it'll become a center focus for more people to work out here. The veteran home is seeking some funding this year to start out there. Senator Kirby worked on this, but they had some difficulties in determining who went where in the sewer and the water and the electricity and whatnot, and they're working through those. And I see those coming. That was one that's in Jackson in a very tentative area, and it's just not sustainable there, so they're moving that out here to Rankin County, and so those will be coming very shortly. A lot of jobs, a lot of capital expense, long term.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. Senator Kirby, thank you for bringing them in. That's awesome.
Oh, you're welcome.
We got to get back to work too. It's a work
Yeah,
day.
you know-
we go in session at 4.
You know, Greg, I have Rankin County, not even all of Rankin County. He has the whole state.
Yeah.
So he has to know all these problems everywhere in every city and every community, and he does. Believe me, he does. And he, you know, does such a good job all over the state.
Thank you.
Yeah, he really does. But to be as involved as he's been in Rankin County, I really do appreciate. You know, and one thing about our lieutenant governor, let's see, what's the saying? There's one, if you can take that to the bank. If he says that you can take it to the bank, well, in Rankin County, I would say, if he tells me tomorrow's Easter, I'm going home to dye my eggs. That's the way it is. And he does a great job and has been so helpful, not to just Rankin County, but the whole state.
Well, thank you both for what you do. I know it's going to be a race to the finish here by the end of March before Sine Die officially in early April.
Right.
So we'll see if hopefully you guys can get it all done expeditiously.
So thank you for having us, Greg. It's good to be here, and we always enjoy the visit. It gives us a chance to talk about more than just a sound bite or 2 lines in a newspaper story. So thank you for taking time.
You are very, very welcome. You folks at home, if you want to track the end of the legislative session, you want to see where bills stand, what's going to conference, you can go to their website anytime, legislature.ms.gov. Track your bill, see what is alive, what is dead, and as Senator Kirby and Representative Newman often tell us, is it dead? No, dead, or dead. So you can actually track it there and see if it pops up again.
You can watch it live. You say, cut it on live. You can
And
watch
they
us
do
live.
webcasts,
Yeah, we do that.
live webcasts on there. So be sure to check it out. It's a great resource of transparency for the taxpayers here in the state of Mississippi. Until next time, I'm Greg Flynn, and this has been Under the Dome.